To make or not to make is really not a question because, of course, we just want to make it. Welcome, Dayland, with another random making encounter. If you are new to the channel, welcome. It's good to see you. We're glad to have you with us. If you are returning, you are made of sterner stuff than I, because I know how long I can ramble on for. So thank you for coming back. Mini makers, terrain builders, crafters, railroad enthusiasts, we're talking texture rollers 2.0. What are we going to talk about today? Well, let's talk about how we can get them, how we can make them, and what our options are, particularly in making. So if you need to get them because you don't want to make them, really there are a bunch of options out there, but one of the better ones, and this is again not a paid endorsement, this is just me being, my personal experience is the rollers from Green Stuff World are really quite nice. They are solid acrylic, 130 millimeter long. In some cases, length does matter. And so they are very, very nice quality material. And above all, the textures are actually quite beautiful. They have a lot of variation in them, and they have a lot of depth and detail. So that's something when you look at making your own, this is something that you're going to really have to work at, is to get something that has kind of this nice quality of depth and detail and variation that makes for something that's very believable. So Green Stuff World is a great option. For me, it's not such a great option because they are in Spain, and Spain is a hella long way from where I live in the middle of the United States. And even in a perfect world, it's 2-3 weeks for things to get to me from Europe. And so I am extremely impatient, and that is just kind of a non-starter. Now, another downside to commercially available is that if I can't find the texture that I want, I'm kind of stuck. I have to pick something that's close to what I want, but maybe not exactly. So if it's the wrong size or the wrong texture, you're really sort of stuck. And so going the DIY route is really a good way to go. Now, in order to be able to DIY it, at the most basic level, you're going to need some sort of a 3D printer or access to a 3D printer. Your two options there are really FDM, so filament printer, standard regular filament printer, or SLA, some sort of a resin printer. Now, the big question everyone's going to immediately ask is, do FDM printers have the resolution needed to print these types of things? Well, let's just answer that question right here, right now. This little roller I found, I think on Etsy. I got it as part of a set of textures. I've even scaled it down. I think this is maybe 70% or so, 25% smaller than it came. So this is even smaller, finer detail than it was designed for. And this little skull pattern is way cool. So you can see, I'm going to try and hold it and cast the right shadows, but there are little femurs, little bones. Those bones have little detail in the ends of the bones. There's little sort of nice detail, very fine detail around the teeth. It's not super detailed, but it's really a great texture. It's printed on my FlashForge Creator Pro using PLA at sort of a fine resolution setting. It works great. If you've got your FDM printing, your filament printing dialed in and working well, these will print extremely well using that technology. Now, if I use my SLA printer, Elegoo Mars, Anycubic Futon, they work just as well from a detail perspective. Obviously, their resolution is a little bit higher, but the reality is, as we saw with our skulls, the quality is there regardless. Where it really matters is in the speed to print them. So in this case, our real benefit to go SLA is the time it takes to print them. To print these 4 70 millimeter long texture rollers took about 10 plus hours. To print 8 70 millimeter texture rollers, SLA, took about 5-ish hours. To print 8 in 100 millimeter took a little over 7 hours. So you can see we're getting twice the rollers, half the time, twice the rollers, longer rollers in still less time than it does to print FDM. Now you might be able to eke more speed out of them, but you don't want to really sacrifice layer height and resolution on these because your layer height is really your edge. This is the edge of the print. These are all printed vertically, straight to the plate, no supports. So your edge is really where the detail is coming from, so you don't want to end up with really pronounced layer lines. Okay, so speed is going to be the difference here, but both technologies will work. So if you have an FDM printer, use your FDM printer. Don't feel like you're out of the game. Okay, now the next question on making them yourself is, do I buy the model or download the model, or do I make the model? So, little FYI, all of these 100 millimeter models I have put on my mini factory. I have an account there, my page. They are all free downloads. I think there are, I don't know, maybe a dozen of them. All of these textures, everything you see here is available for free download. Now, whether or not you like any of them or whether or not they work for you will really be up to you and your application, but they're there and they're free. There are some additional rollers on my mini factory that I've seen that are, you know, a couple bucks a roller or 10 bucks for a set. I think I did buy some on Etsy for a few bucks for a set. There are a bunch on Thingiverse that are free for download as well. So there are models out there that you can buy and download and print. And there's a lot of variety there. And that will open up your world, I think, a little bit more than what you may find in just sort of the commercial world where it's really following sort of that 80-20 rule where, you know, they're going to really focus on the top sellers and they're not going to go make some random esoteric texture that they sell one of, right? So making your own gives you that expanded world of textures. Now, you're still limited to what people have decided to make. So what did Dalen decide to make? What did Etsy person decide to make? May not be what you want to make. So that leads us to our last and final thing to talk about on rollers, and that is how to make your own. And I'm here to tell you, if you have a computer that is reasonably okay, you know, it doesn't have to be some powerhouse render engine machine, multi-threaded 60-core, you know, thread ripper, but you have a fairly okay computer, PC or Mac, you can download Blender, which is 3D software that is free and has become, over the years, very user-friendly compared to what it was. You can download Blender. You can download some free textures, and you can watch a tutorial that is 10 minutes long, not by me, because I can never keep anything to 10 minutes. All of these things are posted down in the description, and you can make your own texture rollers, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no problem. I guarantee it. If you can follow a tutorial, you've got those basic computer chops, you can make your own textures. And at that point, your world is unlocked from a texture perspective. Doesn't matter what you want to make, if you can find a 3D texture, a black and white image of a seamless texture somewhere in the world, free or paid for, you can apply it to a roller, you can create the relief, you can chip out an STL file, you can pull it into your printer, FDM versus SLA, doesn't matter. Hit the print button, and in 10 to 7 to 10 hours to some sort of hours, you can be cranking these things out all day long. That's where I'm going to leave it. Now, my additional caveat or question or suggestion is, if after watching that video, you're finding that it doesn't quite go into the same amount of depth, because he kept it to 10 minutes, which is, again, miraculous for me. But you do want maybe a deeper dive. I did tweak my process for creating my texture rollers a bit. It's based on his video. It's a great tutorial. I did not make qualitative changes. I just made some minor process changes. But if you're interested in seeing how I did it, post a comment down below, post a comment anyway. and I will respond. And if I get sort of enough critical mass, maybe I'll spin that up for another tutorial. I hope you found this a little bit helpful, as always, interesting. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate you spending the time watching these videos, sharing this time with me, this love of creating things, and we will see you back really soon.